As you can see, we've got a new setting here, which I think is great, because we kind of got off to a bit of a chaotic start with this show, you know, with the various versions of me constantly bursting in trying to kill me. Yeah, it's a little distracting, but I think I've got a solution. Check it out. What if there was a pirate? Yeah! I locked the door, aha! Midget me! Russian me! Alright, I could do this all day, but we have things to talk about. Wouldn't it be awesome to live in the Marvel Universe? I mean, superheroes would be real, things like magic would be real, technology would be farther advanced than we could ever imagine, and, you'd be dead. Quickly. I mean, think about it, how much of New York or Los Angeles or wherever is completely demolished whenever a superhero tussle comes about? I mean, it's a hell of a home insurance headache, not to mention life insurance. It almost makes you wonder how superheroes can get away with causing this much damage. Well, Marvel's Civil War series asked that very same question. It was very hyped up when it came out, but when doing research for this review, I've come across a lot of mixed opinions about this graphic novel. A lot of people think that it's great and everyone should read it, and a lot of other people think it's a terrible misstep in Marvel's history and that it should be burned in the next bonfire. Now, I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 and I really liked that game. So, how does this one stack up? Is it great or does it fall flat? Let's take a look.
Well, let's talk about the story. A group of B-list heroes called the New Warriors, led by Speedball, are starring in a reality show about their team. They track down a house full of full-fledged supervillains and decide that the best course of action for their show's finale is to kick down the door and go in guns blazing. This seems to imply that reality TV will doom us all, so I'm on board so far. This goes well until the Submariner's cousin pushes a villain named Nitro to self-destruct in one of the worst disasters in the Marvel Universe's history, killing over 600 people and wiping out a school building. This event shocks the public into finally realizing that, hey, maybe living next to someone who can melt your brain at will and not knowing about it may be a bad thing.
Which is something that always bothered me about the Mutant Registration Act. I mean, I know it's supposed to be symbolic of racism and homophobia, but I mean, if my kid was going to school with another kid who could shoot fireballs out of his nostrils, I kind of want to know, if only to tell my kid to not piss that kid off.
Anyway, the superheroes come in to try to clean up the wreckage. They gaze down at the utter devastation before them. I would like to see said devastation, but apparently it was decided that She-Hulk's green gamma booty was far more important to the story.
It's almost as though comics are marketed towards young males. Seriously though, am I the only one made just slightly uncomfortable of the idea of a Marvel artist spending half his time on this panel on this?
What this essentially leads to is the Superhuman Registration Act, which would force all superhumans to divulge their secret identities to the government, submit to law enforcement training, and work for the government officially, otherwise being branded as vigilantes. On one side of the debate we have Iron Man, who believes that the act is the only way forward for the superhuman population. He thinks that it's high time that heroes are held accountable for the damages they may cause from stopping crime. It's also, to him, the only way to earn back the trust of the people they're trying to protect, as after the accident, many turned to mob violence against the heroes out of fear, even attacking and hospitalizing the Human Torch. On the other side of things, Captain America is spearheading the rebellion against the Registration Act. He sees the idea of superheroes becoming government lackeys as nothing short of the death of herodom as a whole. Government corruption in his mind would inevitably lead to the corruption of superhumans, and he's distrustful of allowing politicians to tell him who the bad guys are. Cap thinks that to stay pure, the heroes must continue to work privately.
So yeah, that sounds like a great idea for a graphic novel to me. I mean, it's a legitimate debate with legitimate arguments. But a lot of people still think that this is one of the biggest disasters in Marvel history. So, what's wrong with it?
A lot of people point to Iron Man, who they say takes his side of the argument and turns it into the obvious bad side. And yeah, I'd be really lying if I said I couldn't see their point. There are a couple of examples of this. First and foremost, Stark starts accepting known supervillains to his side, ostensibly just to boost his numbers. That's pretty immoral. He also clones Thor using a strand of hair he apparently combed off his furniture after the very first Avengers meeting, and has been hanging on to it for just this occasion for years. That doesn't come off as something the good guy would do just to be prepared. That just sounds like something nefarious. Oh, and when the real Thor finds Iron Man next, he's not happy. And then there's Penance. After Speedball survives a disaster he pretty much caused, he's plagued with some massive survivor's guilt. This would have been fine if they just left it at that, but then he becomes Penance, who can only use his powers when in extreme pain. So of course he does the logical thing and makes a new suit with 600 spikes facing inside to constantly stab him while he's wearing it. It just seems like a really forced turn towards trying to be dark and gritty. I mean, 600 people died, many of whom were children. A civil war just started, pitting heroes against each other. We don't need more darkness here. They've pretty much just thrown in super emo.
And so my powers drive the nails of guilt deeper into my soul. A dark raven of darky darkness hovers over this pointless
Francis, the police commissioner's on the phone.
Shut up, Mom. I'm peering into the dark recesses of my tormented soul. Hate it when you call me Francis.
This just isn't necessary. I mean, we have a debate about the responsibility of those in power, with what's supposed to be clear moral lines being blurred in the name of furthering an argument, and then they throw in this bozo. I mean, it's just them trying way too hard to inject some more dark and grittiness into a story that really does not need it.
So that's what doesn't really work. So what's good about this novel? Well, first and foremost, the main idea. The question of whether or not superheroes should be held accountable to the government or face charges of vigilantism is a profound question about the ethics of superheroes in general. After all, if they aren't accountable for the damages that they cause, then who is? And as much as people like to think that taking on villains makes Iron Man the obvious bad guy, I would point out that Captain America may have been perfectly willing to do so himself, if not for the Punisher turning them into Swiss cheese. It's about how things are spiraling out of control and how the argument is causing both sides to lose sight of their original values, and I think that goes a long way towards building up the ending. Also, it takes time to show that Tony Stark is conflicted about his morally ambiguous actions, especially fighting his old allies. After Goliath is killed by the Thor clone, he goes as far as to pay for all 30 funeral plots to bury the giant, who is stuck in big mode. The final battle is kind of a letdown. Not the ending itself, mind you, but the fight itself is kind of lackluster, save for one panel. See, Hercules is none too pleased with his fellow mythological character Thor being cloned and subservient to Iron Man, leading to easily the most awesome scene in the whole book, "Thou art no Thor!" Also, it's worth mentioning that the artwork is really good, even astounding at times. I can't think of any glaring flaws offhand, and that's always a big plus when you can see the time and energy that's been put into the piece.
So the bottom line, this is Marvel Civil War good or bad? Well, I don't really feel like I can tell you that objectively. I personally like it. I would argue that a lot of the things people like to moan and groan about are actually strengths, but again, that's really just my opinion. All I can tell you is to pick it up for yourself and see what you think. If it's something that appeals to you, of course. Well, that's all I got for you guys right now, and if you will excuse me, I have some trash outside my door that needs taken out. I'll see you next time.